let's take a practical analogy. You have a building with several floors. Let's say it's a tower. And you walk up a set of stairs to one floor, and you can look out the windows from that floor and you can see a certain level. Let's say the building is in a forest, for example. And so you can see from the first floor, you pretty much see the ground level underneath the trees. And so at that level where you're at, you can expand your knowledge. There's a certain amount of knowledge you can gather at that level. And so you can do that. You can start filling in more and more knowledge. And then you can also come to the point where you say, I wonder if there isn't something higher, if there isn't a different perspective, a higher way to look at life, something more than this. And that's when you find the staircase again, you walk up to the next floor. And now you are at the level of the leaves of the trees. So now you're seeing that level. And now you're seeing things that you didn't see before, and maybe you can still see the ground and look at it from a slightly different perspective. And again, you can expand your knowledge at that level. And then when you've had enough of that, you come to wanting more again, you find the staircase, you walk up to the next level, and now suddenly you are above the treetops. And now you can see much further than you could ever see before. You realize there are mountains, there's a horizon, there's a sky. And that is what I mean with when you start awakening spiritually. It's almost like first you see just the material world, you're focused on the material world, and it's perfectly all right. You have to learn how the material world works. That's part of why we're here. That's part of why we take embodiment. And then when you become aware that there's a spiritual side to life, it's like that's when you climb. So now you're seeing beyond the material. You're seeing that there's a vast area of knowledge and understanding, a whole different perspective on life than you had before. And that's when you realize that this becomes a path where you have had several examples in history. Jesus was one of them, the Buddha was another, but many others have been there. They have reached a distinctly higher state of consciousness. And one obvious example is Jesus, because think about how many people would have let themselves be crucified as Jesus did, without either trying to escape or fight back. And to me, Jesus demonstrated a higher level of consciousness than most of us have. And he challenged us to follow that. Just think about, look at the Middle East and how the fighting has been going on for thousands of years. And then think about the concept of turning the other cheek. It's an incredible concept. In order to really live that concept, you have to dramatically shift your consciousness away from the fight and flight reaction, where you always want to run away from things or you want to fight back, and you can just stand there and let somebody hit you again, even though you know they're going to do it. And you're completely non-attached to it because you have raised your consciousness to a point where you see beyond the immediate situation. You see a deeper perspective, a deeper meaning, and you realize this particular situation either isn't so important, it's not going to define you, or it has another importance, like in Jesus' case, that he allowed himself to be crucified in order to prove a point and demonstrate a higher state of consciousness. And so that's what I mean. We can see that there are distinctly higher levels, because when I look at Jesus, I can see that he must have had a higher level of consciousness than I have, because I'm not sure I would be able to do what he did with the serenity that he had. And the same with the Buddha, who also demonstrated a level of non-attachment to material conditions.